Dude.
Good vibes. Good vibes on
Dude,
the
I
intro
had
music.
I had to run out during the countdown, and I got back with 1 second left.
Nice. Yeah, you're faster than I thought you were. Nation, what's up? We're coming in fast this week. Brian's got a lot of pent up energy in that he missed last week. But again, big thanks to our boy Kyle for filling in. It was a great stream. It's a lot of fun. But we've got a topic tonight that's hot. I mean, people are hitting it. Fred's hitting it. Mash and Drum is hitting it. And we're going to hit it live and break it down for you guys. So these takes, I mean, they're going to be unfiltered. Like, I was working on this afternoon. Like, what am I going to say? What are my substitutes? Do I even have substitutes? We're going to get to all of that. But first, hello. It's great to be here with you guys. I love Thursday nights because it does feel a little bit like going to the bar. When I look out past the camera and past the computer screen, I see my lamp, a blow-up mattress, a TV that's not turned on. It's a little depressing when I look out, but right here, this is home. This is where we're at, and I'm all in on that. Brian, how are you feeling tonight?
Dude, I'm feeling good. I don't know if one thing I'm curious about with everyone else, when I look at the YouTube channel, it's got a strange crop where I'm actually out.
Weird.
As if it's not capturing the whole, like as if the capture is zoomed in. What does Nation see on the channel so that I know if I'm going crazy or if I'm going accurate?
I think somebody would tell us. I'm gonna get in now. It's gonna mess with the signal a little bit.
Oh, I think I see what happened. I had my screen minimized, but for some reason it didn't do it to scale. That's so weird. So weird. Anyway, ask me again. You asked what I'm sipping tonight? Is that what you asked me?
No, I asked how you're doing. But we'll get to this.
I am good. I was lamenting the loss of George T. Stag last weekend.
Of course.
And I couldn't join the live. I couldn't do it. I couldn't commit.
Is that why?
I was so
you just bailed, but yeah, you couldn't do the live because you're in.
I bailed solely for the loss of George T. Stag.
Just like went full black clothing and started doing some incense marches. You're not Catholic.
Yeah, we actually had a work event. That's, as I told you, we had a work event where we rented out a theater so that we could see Shang-Chi. And it's the Marvel Universe.
Oh, yeah. I like the actor from that. He's in a great show. Gosh, what is that show called? Kim's Convenience. Kim's Convenience. It's on Netflix. Yeah. It's really funny.
The girl's on that show too, right?
I don't know. I know very little about this movie other than the main guy is in Kim's Convenience, a show which I love.
Cool.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to spend plenty of time on today's topic, but I see we got some Remus flowing, Remus 5. I'd love to see
Remus
it.
Flowing.
Love to see it.
Still haven't had it. Still haven't had it.
Do you want to try it before you buy it? I can send you a sample. Okay,
I'll
send you.
I'll get you one. Try it super bad.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if you need a bottle, I can get you a bottle. So just let me know. But first, I'll send you a sample. Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit, Evan Swift. Nice. You guys see this is what I'm gonna sip because it's such a killer. I'll start with this, just a little bit. But if you didn't catch my video on Monday all about Russell's Reserve, you should catch it, not now obviously, but later, because I love Russell's Reserve right now, not as much as Fred Minnick loves Rare Breed, but if
anyone wanted to have the update going during our live as well, you just started the second quarter and the Bucks are up 14-7 on the Eagles. Not to be surprised. But let's go ahead and do our side bets. If you're in the Eagles or the Bucks, why don't you go ahead and throw me a pirate flag or an eagle emoji in the chat. Let me know what side you're aligning with. If you align with neither, throw up a whiskey glass.
I picked the Bucks in my family pool, which I am winning. I came up with a new system. I can't leak it here because then they will know how I am kicking everybody's butt. But I came up with a flawless system to win this thing. And it took me, we've been doing this thing for, probably almost 20 years now. It took me 20 years to develop the perfect system. But now I just kind of like thought it one day and I was like, that's
Ryan, okay. Win. Andrew, okay. Got some division in the house. I like it. William Wiley splitting the division. I like it.
With a whiskey.
Yeah. With whiskey.
It's like that Kylie Jenner Pepsi commercial where she walks out and hands the police officer a Pepsi. That's what William Miley's doing right now.
Kyle's like, football, no, coffee, no, whiskey, no. I got Squid Game to finish.
Which I don't even know what that is still.
If
I'm
anybody
a
in
little
here
bit
is into the Squid Game, go ahead and throw up a squid emoji. Let me fill this place up with some squids. Come on now.
I would say I am thankful for the amount of emojis that are at our disposal. I mean, what a generation.
Oh, shoot. I don't know if there's
animals.
I don't know if there's animals in here, though.
Really?
Oh, there are. No, there are. Hold on.
Okay, good.
Hold on. Where's the squid?
Maybe search octopus. Octopus may be the closest you can get.
There's a squid. There is a
Tom got it.
Oh, no.
Tom threw it up. Tom threw up a squid.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Tom showed us.
I don't see it in the YouTube one, though.
They're figuring it out somehow.
In the YouTube one, I just see this one. That's all I see in the YouTube one. Man, YouTube sucks.
Wow.
I'm gonna get rid of because I can't find it. I gotta do it on my phone or something. Weird.
Interesting. All right. Well, Brian, before we get into what we're sipping, why don't you tell the people who's our lovely partner for the show?
Yeah, let everybody know the reason why I almost didn't make it here, had 1 second to spare, is because I had to go to my fridge and get my last pineapple High Noon Sun Sips, the low-calorie, gluten-free, no sugar added vodka and soda treat that is about to be out of style. They've already made their post saying that they have no intention of doing a pumpkin spice latte. They have to know they're going to lose people to the whiskey season. It's about to take down the Sun Sips and switch over to the whiskey season, which I will let everybody know that October 15th to the 24th, it is Old Fashioned Week. And so I am sipping on my first Old Fashioned of Old Fashioned Week.
Nice. So I need to get some more Old Fashioned stuff because I hear that. Totally here for Old Fashioned Week. But I'm out of maraschino cherries because I eat them as a snack. And I think
dude, here's the deal. Low key, I know you've probably figured this out yet, but you've got to go Luxardo cherry.
So I've been getting have you tried Traverse City? Because I've had Luxardo and they're great, but have you tried the Traverse City?
No, I don't think I get them. I don't think I get them here.
I'll send you some with the sample. They're expensive, but they are delightful.
Yeah, these are expensive, but gosh golly, are they not scrumptious?
Gosh golly, gee whiz.
Oh, so good.
Sweet. Well, I already showed the kind people that I was drinking Russell's, which is almost like an old fashioned, just in bourbon form, and water per usual. So come about 8:45 or 9 o'clock. You guys know what time it'll be.
Yep.
Time it normally is about then. But we got 41 people in the chat. Y'all welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight as we tackle this topic because it's going to be sick. Before we get there, though, we have one more bit. Our usual, what did you get this week? What bottles did you buy? If you bought any, it's almost never a no answer to that question.
Yeah, so, great Brian, question. Let me look up. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to quickly look at my spreadsheet because it's been a little bit of time since you and I talked last. Yeah. But the one thing of note that I did get is this Old Forester 100
or 100 proof.
It's 100 proof.
Oh, nice.
What this one is Chairman's Choice GGB IV. So what happened is they did a tour. Normally a product like this doesn't get seen. Apparently they did a tour the last couple of weeks. Very, very small. You couldn't do it online. You had to go and do it in person. And when there's a changing over of the president of the company, the presidents do their own pick to commemorate the switching over of the chairmans, or the chairmans. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So they do their own pick. And normally this goes to the family, friends, and employees of the people. But they did. This had 108 bottles to it, and they did a tour where you could actually purchase this.
Nice.
It's 100 proof. It's I want to say that it's 9 years. It's 8 or 9 years old. I think it's 8 years old. 8 years, 9 months, or something like that.
Their picks tend to be young.
This is 8 years, some odd months, and it's actually pulled from the run of barrels that will go into this year's birthday when it's going to be this year's birthday. But they
You mean
pulled
next
this
year's
barrel out.
birthday?
No, so normally birthday is 10 to 12 years old. So this is 8 years. So like the birthday, the run of barrels that have been earmarked for
4
here
years
in
out
2
or
to 4 years.
Yeah, okay.
And what was interesting, because I didn't really know their process about how they pick birthday, but they talked about it too. And they said that it's got to have a perfect score that day. Birthday, you always hear that it comes from a distillation day or whatever. But what they said is, the birthdays are barrels that come from a single day where when the grains arrived, they were scored perfectly. When it has proofing, it is perfect from what it says. It's like exactly 125.0 on the dot. There's all these things that make it perfect. And while they always strive for perfect days, what ends up being from birthday is always from a production day where everything in the whole chain is, for all intents and purposes, a perfect day.
Huh.
I was weird. Like, oh, that's pretty intriguing. But anyway, what this tastes like is like, I don't know if you've had birthday bourbon and you're like, oh, that's a little, it's kind of disappointing. You kind of get into some like, it's the same kind of flavor I get in King Kentucky. It's hard to say. It kind of tastes like burning rubber, or like, it's not over oakness, but it's like,
no, I know what you mean. It's kind of funky. Yeah.
So it doesn't have that. It's just all that like cupcake, vanilla, caramel sweetness with a little bit of oak before it gets to that. And it's not barrel strength. The other pick, there's another pick to commemorate the other chairman, and it was barrel strength. But this one's 100 proof, so this one's pretty close to the proof of birthday is anyway. So it's essentially a president's choice. That was $60. So that is what I've picked up.
Nice. Chairman's choice, if you will. That is a cool pickup. I won't even show, but picked up another. I was down to my last Knob Creek single barrel. So I went to Timers. That's not why I went there, but I went to Timers, which is a place which I dig. And they had gotten a new knob pick. So now they have like 5 Knob Creek picks. It's kind of ridiculous. But their most recent one was really, really good. So I picked that up because I always like to have one of those on hand. And then I got a backup for my light whiskey from Obtainium. So now I have a backup. Yeah, 13.5-year-old light whiskey, which the 16-year-old pick I have is phenomenal. And actually, so Kyle and I talked a little bit about this last week, but I added a decent amount of water to this last night, this 16-year-old pick, and it was amazing. Like, it's really good at hazmat, but it's so hot. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and proof this sucker down. And it held up. It was delightful. So, I mean, it just goes to show you don't know what's going to be delicious whiskey. And Brian and I actually have an opportunity to buy a whiskey that's kind of crazy. And I'm just going to tease you with that. I'm just going to throw that out there. Very unusual whiskey. Eric Sawyer has tasted this whiskey. That's all I can say right now. But we'll know maybe next week because Brian and I gotta get some whiskey out to Brian, do a little tasty taste. But this may be actually if we get this whiskey, it'd be the first one to come beating out Middle West and then the 8-year MGP from Dancing Goat. So we'll see. We got so much in the works. I just want this whiskey to land. I want to get some of these picks out to people. I'm frustrated, but I'm trying to be patient. Okay. All right. I think we're ready. We're ready to get into this. So Fred Minnick, predictably, I mean, this is a good topic that he tackled. And I'm sure the junkies have done this before. It's not like a super novel concept, but the idea is, are there good whiskeys? Are there whiskeys that make good substitutes to the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection? Now, it's helpful before we get into what Brian and I might suggest. We're just going to banter about this idea for a minute. Yeah, Tom, it is a new pick, so it would be available to Patreon and to Nation. But there's a lot of it, too. There's something in my glass. Gross. So anyway, but that's all I'm going to say. We'll talk about it if we get it. And then you will be thrilled. I really like this whiskey. Just want to make sure Brian's good with it. Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. Are there good substitutes? Like, can you actually find pretty decent substitutes for this whiskey? And my immediate reaction is just like, I don't know if you can, because the age state, like we're talking about 15, 16-year-old, some cases 19-year-old weeded bourbon. That's super old weeded bourbon. Like, what else on the market gets close? Stag, maybe Stag might be the easiest one to get close to at a 14-year-old cast strength ride bourbon. That's the whole thing about Weller too, is it's cast strength. Then we got Saz 18-year-old 90 proof Sazerac rye, 101 proof 17-year-old Eagle Rare, and then Thomas Handy, which is a 6-year-old cast strength rye. That's also fairly easy maybe to substitute for. But that said, you know, like 3 of those or 4 of those, you're just like, what? Like, and then profile wise too is a whole other issue. Is like, is it actually a good substitute if it tastes nothing like the product? Which, as we go through, we'll get into what Fred picked and then what our recommendations are and try and find out, is there actually a path forward here? But anyway, those are my opening thoughts. Brian, what are your opening thoughts as we tackle
Yeah, so I will, I'm not going to speak upon all of the products because I don't think it's inclusive to all the products, but I will say when it comes to William LaRue Weller, and we'll dive into this a little bit more when we get into suggestions. For those who have had William LaRue Weller, the thing, maybe it's just me, and I feel like maybe I just have a general opposition to weeded profile. Like wheat is the major grain, secondary grain, secondary grain whiskeys. I am not a humongous fan of the William LaRue Weller, and I don't usually think that I like it more than Stag Jr. But ongoingly,
then Stag Jr. or George T. Stag?
I'm sorry, George T. Stag. But also ongoingly a through line to Buffalo Trace products. And again, you all can disagree with me. Totally understand if you do. Whether it is a rye, a ride bourbon, a slightly higher ride bourbon, or a weeded profile Buffalo Trace, the pocket of flavors is pretty tight. And there have been times where I've had a 107 and I'm like, this could be a Blanton's, or I've had an Eagle Rare and I'm like, this tastes like a wheat. Like the flavors are all roughly pretty close to me. And so,
well, one thing to note on that as you go is like, it's because their secondary grains are generally pretty low. Like they don't jack up, there's not a heavy amount of their secondary grains. Buffalo Trace is pretty corn heavy.
Yeah, totally get that. And so it's just something I wanted to preface before we talk, because I don't know that where I feel like a lot of people are comparing weeder to weeder because it's a weeder. I don't necessarily think that has to be the case in order to try and match the same flavor profile.
I like that take, Brian. I like that approach. I think you're redefining the rules, but there are no rules. So nice job.
But the second thing I will say about Buffalo Trace is I think that the suggestion that I have is really, really close. And I think a lot of other people's suggestions are close too. But I will say I am in the camp that, because I have also tried, and how I like to break down flavor.
I do know this.
I have yet to find a whiskey that is comparable to George T. Stag. It just has a je ne sais quoi that can't be matched. But in terms of it, like you can find things that have elements of what it is, but I've yet to find a product that comes full circle. And I say that because somehow it is a well oaked whiskey, but a well sweetened whiskey at the same time as being a highly fruited whiskey.
Fruited.
And I feel like you always miss an element of something. And we'll talk about that. So,
all right. Well, yeah, absolutely we will. So what we're going to do here, let's develop a little bit of a structure for this.
Yeah.
First, we're going to, just for the sake of doing it, is we're going to throw out what Fred said. And then we're going to agree with it or disagree with it. And, I've given respect. So no disrespect to Fred. I'll preface that as this isn't meant to trash Fred. He just gave us a starting point. And so now that he's done that, we get to critique him for it, which is fine. It's a critique. It's not like a criticism of who he is. It's that well, we think he's wrong, which is fine because this is a taste thing. So nobody get overly worked up about it from that aspect. So what we'll do is we'll start at Saz 18, then we'll go Eagle Rare, then we'll go Handy, then we'll go GTS, and then we'll go William LaRue Weller.
Okay. And while we're going through, guys, go ahead and put your
Yes.
If you guys have some ideas in here too, throw them out here. And I've got multiple things for each one. So, if you all want me to type them out so you can make a list, we can totally do that. But I've got my list that I'll have.
Yeah, so, I have some thoughts. I don't necessarily have this one's dialed in. And you're gonna make a prefacing remark. I will as well. Mine is that these aren't all readily available. Like they're not all like I will say they're more available than BTAC. They're easier to come by. Like you can get them easier than you can get BTAC, but they're not like, you just go to the store and get it. Because my contention is, before we get started, you can't go to the store and get a good BTAC alternative in most cases. And maybe 2 of the cases, okay-ish. But in 3 out of 5, no. There's just not a product on the shelf that's a good substitute. That's my
and I admire Minnick's list for readily available, but I for the most part disagree in them being similar. I think it was great to get the attention, and I can see why he drew the correlations. I just don't think it's necessarily a path that's going to lead somebody to say this is a good alternative.
Yeah. I'm sure glad I got that when I didn't get this. Yeah. It's like, no, that's a good whiskey. He didn't say anything on there that I'm like, that whiskey sucks. He did talk Whistle Pig a little bit, which I'm not into, but outside of that, he didn't say a whiskey that I thought was bad. It's just, I think it's not a good substitute.
Right.
Porkin says Handy's easy to sub for. Eagle Rare 17 pretty easy too. I'm curious to see, Porkins, when we get to Eagle Rare, what you thought was a good substitute for that. He says Saz 18 is probably the hardest. There just isn't much old rye out there. Maybe Kentucky Owl batch 2. Yeah, I mean Kentucky Owl maybe, but profile's a problem. We'll start there. So let's get into Saz 18. What did Fred give us for Saz 18? He says, so I started laughing, honestly, when he threw out Russell's Reserve 6-year-old, because there's no more different rye.
Fred has this both on his blog, but then also he did a video of it as well.
So I get that they're both Kentucky ryes, and that's the approach he took. So Fred said for Saz 18, what's an alternative? What's a substitute? He said Russell's Reserve 6-year-old, which is close in proof. I think it actually is the same proof, or maybe Russell's Reserve 6 is 95 proof. Anyway, close in proof. Then they're both age stated. They're both Kentucky ryes. So, okay. But I mean, profile wise and age statement wise, we're just like in completely different universes. Right. So when he said that, I'm like, dude, ugh. And he gave a reason why he didn't say Baby Saz, says he's not a fan of Baby Saz. And I get that. And in some cases, the distillate may be different, like in the older batches of Saz 18 against the Baby Saz. But anyway, I thought I would never recommend, hey, somebody's like, I can't get Saz 18. What's another really good, well-aged rye I can get? I would never say Russell's Reserve 6-year. What's your reaction, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't, but I did find something that is in like that everyday, I think, purchasable price range that I think palate-wise matches up. I actually used it to make this old fashioned tonight.
Let me take a guess, because I thought about one, but I would have pegged, it's too high proof. The one that I thought of for this is too high proof, but it possesses a decent amount of character. So I thought
this one actually comes in a little bit lower proof too.
I thought maybe Pikesville, but that's 110 proof, so I didn't put that. I chose something else. That again is not super easy to find, but I think it's probably.
I have a few suggestions, but this is.
Well, why don't you throw out one, and then I'll throw out one, and then you can fill in the blanks. Real quick before you do that, William Wiley says Bullet 12-year. I like that. I like that recommendation. Cool. That's a good one. Yep, that's a good rye too. That went really under the radar. Peter says Whistle Pig 15 could be an alternative. That is a well-aged rye. Very, 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 very different profile from Saz, but that's okay. the age statement for sure. And you can find it. Yes, you're right. Not cheap. Well, neither is Saz 18. So I like Peter's and Williams' recommendations. Good job, guys. I didn't have either one of those. All right. What's yours, Brian?
So I will preface and say, this is a young whiskey. Okay. Younger whiskey.
No problem.
Has some tell for that. However, the thing that was intriguing to me about Saz 18 when I tried it is that, and when you think about aging in a barrel, this is the thing that's intriguing to me about barrel aging. So, you know, the what's it called? The breakdown of a barrel is that you get all of the color and a bunch of the sugar browning flavor from the toasted oak, right?
No doubt.
As it's breathing in and out of the first bit of the layers of the stave. Then as it's aging long enough, you get into oak. You get into some, you know, your 8, 10, 12 year. You get some oak notes, but it's still sweet because it's still some of the char. It still has probably some toastiness from being charred. But with a barrel like Saz 18, you're now pushing so far through the wood that you're getting into raw wood and conditions that were more on the outside of the barrel than the inside of the barrel. That's where you get mushroomy notes. That's where you get dirt notes. That's where you get earth-like flavor notes mixed in with a raw wood. And so I think the thing that was so intriguing to me about Saz, there's parts of me that disliked its flavor profile, but it had this raw grassiness that makes you appreciate the movement through a barrel. And so,
if you will,
I am talking about Michter's US1 straight rye. This is I would think, readily available. This one happens to be a US1 from 2021, but the grassiness that comes through in this, despite the grain, and I would almost even say most noticeably on ice, like in this old fashioned, you get past the syrupiness of like the Angostura and syrup.
Sure.
And you start to notice these grassy tones that feel very herbal, that remind me a lot of Saz 18.
That was a long journey, but I appreciated it, and I like where you landed. Peter B., you're getting ahead of us. Fred threw out that knob for handy. We'll get there. So I was right up your alley, my bro, but I was going a little bit more exclusive because I think due to the age statement and the barrel time, I just don't think there's a substitute for that. And I'm getting a little bit closer than you did because I was going the Michter's 10-year rye.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean this product certainly doesn't. There's a note in the Buffalo Trace ryes that this doesn't have, and this has the big ginger that also Buffalo Trace doesn't have. And I still haven't pegged that Buffalo Trace rye note. I'll get there, but generally this is a softer Kentucky rye, not as bourbon-y. And I think Buffalo Trace is kind of the same. Their ryes aren't exactly bourbon-y, but they're not like anywhere close to a 95.5, Indiana/Canadian style rye. So certainly this is not easy to get, but it's been relatively easy for me to get. Up in Wisconsin, I've had 3 bottles of this. So that's, I feel pretty good about that, where I have never had a shot at BTAC on the shelf. Just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, this is easier to get, more readily available. You cannot go to the store and get it. So I get that people are going to watch this and comment later and tell me I'm full of it. It's not going to be the first time. But I also would agree that yours is not a bad bet either. It's nowhere close to Saz 18, but I do think it's closer to the profile than like a Russell's, which is big lemony. Like it's lemon and herbaceous and not at all similar in profile to the Saz 18.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to throw out any Saz 18 substitutes you guys have? And the proof is kind of, the proof range was tough on that one too, because there are some products that are more well-aged that are closer to cask strength, like some folks throughout the Kentucky Owl. Those being higher in proof makes it maybe closer substitute for Handy, but then they're like 5 years older than Handy. So that's a tough one. Yeah, Eric says I'm full of it. Thanks, dude. Appreciate you getting ahead of the curve on that one. All right. Let's reload.
I do have two more I can mention for this.
Oh yeah, please do. Yeah, definitely. Let's go. Yep.
The first of which is a rye, but it is. I don't think it's any more easily obtainable, but it's possibly cheaper if you had to go through extra means to find one, and that would be the Jefferson's 18 Presidential Rye. I think now there's a whole bunch of the Jefferson's Presidential Ryes, and they're all kind of older. I actually don't think that there are any, like, I don't particularly care about the year of them. I just think that it's another one that has a similar profile to it. But since they're rare, older, hard to find, that it's not, there's no reason really to mention it, but it is something that is a substitute. The other thing I was going to say that I think is more readily available, but also more probably in line with the Michter's 10, but it is not a rye, and that is Elijah Craig 18. You get into something that's like that 90 proof, right? Still, but you get into the 18 years old, and while some of them have been that I've had have been nice and sweet and more like a bourbon profile that wouldn't go in this category, there have been some that I've had that have been that grassy, like rick house floor flavor profile. So if I'm talking flavor profile specifically, I think Elijah Craig 18 should be thrown in the mix as a potential comparison to as 18.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I could see you throwing that out for the Eagle Rare 17, just because they're both rye
Which
profiles.
Spoiler I also have in that list.
Okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And I get that. Like, when whiskeys get that old, they lose, and we talked about this on the channel with fairly decent regularity of late. They tend to lose some of their original distillate character. Not some, they definitely do, particularly when they get really old. And that's why we've talked about Beam and Heaven Hill tasting so similar the older they get. Big thanks to Kyle Ramage. He's starting a movement here, which I appreciate. I have thought about buying AirPods. They are not cheap. They would be nice. Do I look slightly ghetto with this? Yes, I do. But I have 3 pairs of these. So
I got these knockoff pairs for $31 shipped to my door.
And you like them?
So they work. They work.
Okay.
I use them for work. No, but they'll pop up on my phone. They'll give me the percentage. It's got the noise cancel, everything.
Great. Oh, that's pretty good. And they got a microphone and everything. Like, they got a mic to talk on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a very good.
We should be able to get to $31.
That's what I was gonna say. So thank you, Kyle, for starting the Drew P AirPod Fund. Let's change this to the Drew P AirPod Fund. If we could get to at least $35 tonight, we'll get Drew a pair of these knockoff.
Amen.
AirPods.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Or I'll throw in that.
Thanks, High Noon, for always supporting us.
Matt, what's up, dog? Glad you're here. All right, sweet. Well, let's and go again. Violence not condoned. What's next? What did I say? I think I said Eagle Rare was next. That's where we're going next. Eagle Rare 17 substitutes for that. So our boy Fred, I liked his pick here. So I give thumbs up to Fred's pick. Profile wise ish, but it's a great whiskey, and it's a rye bourbon with a good age statement at 100 proof. And that was the Knob Creek 12. So he gets my full endorsement on Knob 12. I think that's a great pick. I do have 2 others to throw out. Actually, I have 3 others. So I've got plenty here in this category as well, relative to profile and mash bill with age statements. So plenty of stuff. But anyway, big fan of the Knob 12. Brian, your take on Fred's?
I'm assuming that's a Knob 1200 proof, right? Do they make cask and 100?
Okay. That is correct. So yeah, I've got the Knob 1200 up there.
I have not tried either Knob 12 to say, so I can't speak for that. I know that a lot of people like it more than the Knob 15, and I do think the Knob 15 is like a decent suggestion. So I would have to assume that if people are in favor of the Knob Creek 12 being a better pick, it's probably a good suggestion. So I can support it.
Nice. Well, why don't you hit us with the first suggestion here. And squad, now that we're on to Eagle Rare, hit us with your recommendations. William Wiley did throw out Elijah Craig 18 as well. He was like,
correct.
he's on board for that.
I do
Big
have
thanks to
Tom
for throwing in 5 to the headphone fund. How can I say no, especially after receiving my sweet ass "It's Bourbon Time" T-shirt, which I didn't say it's Bourbon Time. It's like close to Bourbon Night, but it does say Bourbon Time. It is pretty dank, and it's got the backwards running clock. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate the kind words. And I like that shirt as well. So if you're a Patreon supporter for how long? 6 months at the 3-finger tier or above, you get dank t-shirt at 6 months, dank t-shirt at 12 months. Is that correct? Yeah, that is correct. Is that correct? Yeah, I'm just losing my mind right now. Anyway, but Tom just got a shirt, so I just sent out the first run of the Bourbon Time shirts. Now I got to come up with a 12-month T-shirt idea. I'm still working on the 9-month fat bottom glass idea, which I did throw out a design. Fat bottom glass, you make the bourbon world go round. I forget who threw that out, but I did a little design. It looks pretty cool. And the glasses are sick. They look, well, like the fat bottom glass I drink out of on the regular. It's upstairs, I think, in the dishwasher. Okay. Let's see, before we get into your suggestions here on the Eagle Rare 17, we've got Porkins, EC18, Sam Houston 15. Good pick. I like that one. Calumet, or Calumet. I always thought that was Calumet. Figured it was French. But Sam Houston 15, Calumet 15, basically the same thing. Doc Swinson's 15, same thing. Knob Creek 15, Remus Repeal 5. All great recommendations. Good job, Porkins. You just loaded with them. I mentioned like none of those. So this is a good one to chat about for sure, because I think there's a lot of good stuff out here. All right, that's it. Brian, hit us with your first.
Yeah, me and Porkins align on a couple of those. But my first one I would say would be the Elijah Craig 18.
Yeah, that was on my list as well. It's an easy one. You know, and proof-wise, it's a little bit lower, which kind of sucks. But it was right on the old version of the Eagle Rare 17, you know, the pre-101 proof, the 90 proof version. You know, that EC18 right up that alley for sure. I had a few more that I felt like developed or delivered maybe a little bit more complexity. What are your thoughts generally on Eagle Rare 17, Brian? Because Fred he destroyed it. He's like, it's awful. I don't like it. I've never liked it.
Yeah, well, what's so weird is in the same breath that he said he never likes, you know, and he feels like he has to like choke through it every time. He then said that this year's was the best Eagle Rare since it came out. So, and how much he loved it. So it was intriguing. To, you know, for sure. I don't really have a lot of thoughts on Eagle Rare. So, you know, it's difficult, especially with, you know, it's difficult to obtain. And then the secondary prices are so high on them. It's like, there's no reason to ever try and obtain one unless you just have loads of money to blow. So like trying it is as close as I've ever gotten. Yeah. And it doesn't help when it's generally frowned upon, or when you just know how good the barrel proof version of Buffalo Trace at 15 years old is.
Right, for way less money. I mean, if you're trading or whatever, retail's supposed to be the same, but we all know there's just not much Eagle Rare 17 out there ever. So, all right, hit us with another, Brian. Or do you have any more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think the Calumet 15 is a good suggestion for it. So, you know, when it comes to old whiskeys that are both oaky or I don't want to say both, that are oaky and sweet and have a little bit of like that licorice, slightly medicinal spice, all of that, but overall relatively balanced. I feel like that's the kind of profile that Eagle Rare is. And so the Calumet 15 is one that hits on some of the grounding notes, some of those earthier notes. It hits on the oaky notes. It definitely hits a little bit more medicinal in terms of like the licorice anise type profile, but then also has some kind of vanilla to boot with it. And so I think that in the proof range is really similar to the 101s now. So I honestly think that probably the best substitute at this present time is Calumet 15.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't call out any of the old 1792/Beam, whatever, Barton Beam, whatever's out there. I'll throw out one here though, that I think it seems like, oh yeah, obviously, but hasn't come up, and that's Eagle Rare store picks. Eagle Rare store picks can be awesome. There's some really, really good ones. Granted, we're not getting close to that 18-year age, but some of those might pop at a 12. And I have had some really nice oaky Eagle Rare store picks that I loved. And, the cost on those really attainable. The secondary value on Eagle Rare store picks is not as crazy as you'd think. So wouldn't overlook those. Thankfully, I've been able to accumulate some over the years. So got a nice stock of those. I have one more, but do you have any more on the Eagle Rare 17?
I do, and I don't think that this is my one suggestion that I say I don't think it's not that much more attainable. I think it's possibly a little bit cheaper, but I also think it's probably overall better, and that would be one of the older Eagle Rare 10-year 101 proofs, the old Dusties,
the Apprentice ones. Yeah, that's one of my dream bottles. I didn't even entertain that.
or an Eagle Rare decanter, which is probably going to be the 90 proof, but what you're substituting in terms of the extra 7 years of age, you're getting in the older funk. So
did you say the secondary value is pretty comparable? It is actually, isn't it?
It depends. I think the decanters are going to be like a third of the price.
Get out.
But I think the old Apprentice ones are probably
it's pretty comparable,
40 to 50% of the price.
No, I mean, so what's the Eagle Rare 17? So the 2020 Eagle Rare 17 secondary value. It's like a G, right?
No, I thought the Eagle Rares were like 1,500 to 1,800.
Yeah, I know the secondary value.
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I thought it was closer to 1,500.
I didn't think it was that high, but obviously I'm not actively looking. Normally I consult that Facebook group, BSM value reference. Yeah, that's really helpful. But the Apprentice Eagle Rares, which I would definitely want to get long before I got an Eagle Rare 17, those ones are, about 1,000.
Yeah. I just remember a buddy who got I want to say it was an 80s. This was a couple of years ago, and we know that prices have changed, but he had gotten just a couple of years ago, like an 86 101 for like $560, which is a lot of US dollars, but compared to secondary or 17, and for a dusty Eagle Rare 10-year 101, fantastic price.
Yes, I would agree. It is a ton of money, but for what you get, I'd say it's hard to say anything at $560 is a good value, but relative to its like worth, and I think it's long-term worth, it's a good value, particularly for a collector. That said, I would really want to drink it.
Right, absolutely.
The last one I'll throw out is a little bit of like interesting, because it's really kind of like you got to hope you get lucky, on the bottle / barrel, but that's Henry Mckenna. Some Henry Mckenna barrels are old and funky tasting. They deliver a lot more age than, maybe even in 10 years. Some of them are really nutty and taste nothing, even anywhere close to a Buffalo Trace mash bill, but some of them are more fruity, deliver some cherries and deliver some dark chocolate and a lot of oak. And so that would be the last one I'd throw out there.
Yeah, that was an honorable mention for me too. So good suggestion.
Boom. Yeah, we're crushing it. All right. Next up, we are going handy.
Yeah. Also, 1 minute left in the second, and Buccaneers are now up 21-7. So
it's hard to say with a straight face. And just remind everybody of the super chat fund going to buy some wireless headphones for me. Thanks again to Kyle for starting that. All right. So next up, Thomas H. Handy. We're talking about a 6-year, which I'm always amazed that they don't release this one at a 10-year. It's always so young. It's a 6-year cast strength rye. So it's basically baby sass, but cast strength. So interesting place to start. We'll talk about Fred's and we'll have people throw out their recommendations even as we do that. Fred says the Knob Creek special release cast strength rye. So this was barreled in 2009. I forget the one he had, but bottled in 2018. So we're talking about an 8-year-old or 9-year-old rye. I'm pretty sure this one is actually 9 years. Does it say that somewhere? I thought it did. Anyway, 9-ish years old rye. Kentucky rye. It's Beam versus Buffalo Trace. But I didn't hate this recommendation. I think I'm going to actually live pop this tonight because we tasted that sample. The issue I have is a profile, though. Yeah, I will pop it as long as I get some more love for the headphone thing. But anyway, the profile is not exactly close. I get some bubble gum and some more soft sweetness. The Handy, as much as the proof is high on it, I don't get a very bold, certainly don't get a very spicy flavor profile, whereas pretty much everything in the Knob Creek family is spicy. So
yeah,
I don't hate this. I don't think it's maybe the best recommendation, but it's workable for me. I would have thought about it as I went through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think I like his suggestion, and I think Mash, Jason said the same thing, and it's also on my list too. So profile-wise, you're right. It's not that great, but it is relatively available. And honestly, it's a product we shouldn't have. It's a product and a price point that we shouldn't have right now.
That's correct. Yeah.
And in 2 years, people are gonna be like, I wish I would have bought them. So we're just telling you now, you should just get
buy
it.
them.
There's
so much around Milwaukee. If you guys,
I don't know how readily available it is, but our Costco has a whole entire pallet of it, and it's going to sit there because no one goes there and buys it except for me.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna drink this one right now. Whoops.
Yeah, it's so affordable for what it is, and it has a spec that you just do not see. It's older. It's older.
Guys, before we move on, I'm so glad that recent Knob Creek releases have fixed this, but the wax on Jim Beam products up until 2020 is awful. It's horrendous, and it gets freaking everywhere. It gets in your glass. It's like the worst. I don't know how they got by. I don't know how we let them get by forever with this bull crap wax that just explodes when you try and tear into it. It literally it's like clipping your fingernails, for dang sake. I mean, can I get an amen? This is it's awful. I wish I could show you. There's like a bajillion pieces of wax right now on my bar. Deeply frustrating. I don't like it, especially like from a UX perspective. Like, how did nobody be like, we can do better? Like, makers figured it out, but it seems like Beam was just like, screw them. Anyway, I'm done now. Deeply frustrated by the Knob Creek wax solution, but they have fixed it. So somebody got wise and decided to care about people. Okay, folks, let's read some recommendations here. Porkins is just like he's operating with a high capacity magazine here. Yeah. William Wiley, Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye destroys Handy. That's probably true. Good recommendation. Very hard to come by. So that's kind of on that tier where I was with the Michter's 10 rye earlier. Don't hate it though. I actually like that recommendation a lot. System Trend Rare Breed Rye is better than Handy Lol. I disagree. I'm not a big fan of the Rare Breed Rye. I think it's very light. They don't give an age statement on it, but it tastes like Russell's rye. And it's like, well, guys, why do we need Rare Breed Rye if we have Russell's single barrel rye? It tastes the same. At least there's a difference between the Rare Breed profile and the Russell's Reserve single barrel profile in the bourbon. I don't get much of that at all in the rye. Kyle said knob is pretty nutty and a bit grainy. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was lighter than I expected when I got the sample from somebody's blind. I don't remember whose blind that was. Porkins says Redemption 10-year barrel proof. I like that one. I like it a lot. Like that recommendation for sure. That is on my list. Pikesville, pretty big variation in profile there too, but I understand how it got on your list. Knob single barrel, knob cast strength, Old Forester barrel proof. I'm assuming the Old Forester and Jack Daniels are the ryes you're referencing. Both probably pretty decent in Kentucky Owl. Yeah, I mean, Handy is kind of one of those ones that's pretty dang easy. So I'm here for a lot of those. And like I said, the Redemption made my list. I think that one goes overlooked and is readily available. Some of those are not readily available. The Old Forester barrel proof rye, Jack Daniels barrel proof rye, not readily available. But the Redemption 10-year, you can find it. I dare say if you have a Total Wine near you, it's probably sitting on the shelf just waiting for somebody, a wise, good-looking, professional person like you to go get it. All right, Brian, hit us with one of yours.
Yeah, I think the KC one is my easier, more affordable, easier to find one.
Yeah.
One that I think is a better but also comparable one would be to find a Willett Family Estate low rye mash rye.
Of the
so these are going to come in. These are no. So this would be one of their single barrels. And I say that because I know that the single barrel, you can find certain barrels that are the low rye mash bill, not a blend of the low rye and the high rye. And the low rye mash bill is going to be more like your Kentucky ryes. It's sweeter. It's more bourbon-like. I think it is the best Willett distillate that they have out there. And there are some that I think hit on that profile that have the rye bite, but they have that kind of sugar-coated bubblegummy kind of quality. So it's this bubblegum cinnamon mixture thing like Thomas H. Handy has. But it is
harder, probably.
It is tricky to find.
Equally hard to find as Handy. Maybe not. I don't know. It certainly would be up here. It's just not available.
Yeah, I'd assume it's at least half the price, though, if you were to try and find one.
Really? Because I think Handy's got to be the lowest secondary value of all the BTAC line.
Yeah, which at this point is still $700.
I don't think it's that much. I think it's probably in the 400. I can't imagine. No. What? I don't want to live in a world where it's that much.
I'm telling you.
All right. Well, $650. I've got one other to throw out, and I'm staying. I mentioned I'm going to pour this in a minute, but I mentioned for the Saz. We were both in the Michter's family for the Saz 18. I'm staying in the Michter's family. I'm going Michter's Barrel Strength Rye as a replacement for Handy. This is fantastic.
It's a great suggestion.
It's fruity. It's probably the closest thing age statement wise and profile wise to Handy, and I love it. It's really.
I've actually had it in a blind against. My Siri is hearing me. Sorry. It's not Siri. It's Amazon.
Alexa.
It's Alexa. We have the our thermostat. I guess if I talk too loud, the thermostat thinks I'm talking. Listen to this. This is ridiculous. Alexa, turn the music off. I cannot believe this. I've had a sample. I think it might have been the 2019 or 2020 Andy in a blind against one of the Michter's Barrel Strengths, and the Michter's beat it out. So I forgot about that suggestion, and it is a fantastic suggestion.
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's it's still not easy to find, but it's easier. I mean, I've had 3 or 4 bottles of the Michter's Barrel Strength Rye, no bottles of the Handy. So we're talking 400% easier to find at least. All right, you got any others? That's between the Redemption 10-year rye, or some of even the older Redemption releases. I had an 8-year Redemption rye that was amazing, fantastic, and I would put that up against a Handy. But that's it. That's all I got outside of what was already thrown out there.
Yeah, I have an honorable mention to the Jack Daniels Barrel Strength Rye, which again, like you said, you can't find. You can find the Tasters series ones, at the distillery. They're easier to find, but they're a little bit brash, maybe a little bit younger, a little bit more rough around the edges. So I cannot necessarily suggest those. But the Jack Daniels Barrel Strength Rye, I think, is one of the best rye products on the market. I think it's getting to the point where I might say it's second to the Knob Creek Cask Strength, but in terms of available, you got to give it to the Knob Creek.
Yeah. Of course, we all want Booker's Rye, but that's not actually. Everything in the world is a substitute for Booker's Rye. Okay, we're 3 down and rolling. We're 8:55, and I can feel my bladder reaching capacity, but we're going to keep pushing through.
Let's go.
Yeah, I feel okay. We're going to keep muscling through it, stretching through it. We're into the big dogs now, and we're into. Well, I'm just going to warn you guys. I was triggered. I was triggered by this next one. It's George C Stag. Okay. George C Stag, 14-year-old Buffalo Trace, generally. High proof, generally. Exquisite, generally. Fantastic bourbon. And Fred, as you guys may know if you watched it, he's said this before. It's not a secret, but he doubled down on his deep affection for rare breed. Even going so far as to say, if he said this verbatim, if he's looking on the shelf and there's rare breed on the shelf and there's just George T. Stag on the shelf, he's going rare breed. And I'm just like, how? Number one, the profile's not the same. Number two, I think that's bullcrap. I'm going to call bullcrap on Fred here. Again, no offense to Fred, all the respect of the world to Fred, but I think that's bullcrap. Like, assuming they're both at retail price, or even if George C. Stag is at $200, let's say, and Rare Breed's at its MSRP of 40 to 50. 40 is probably low, but 50. So 50 to 200. Given the rarity of George T. Stag and the uniqueness of the product, 14-year-old barrel-proof Buffalo Trace that's, released in a 15,000 bottle chunk, give or take, on an annual basis, and the availability of Rare Breed, you're telling me you're going to actually pass up George T. Stag to get Rare Breed? That's what he said he would do. I cry foul. There's no freaking way that Fred would do that. There's no freaking way anybody would do that. Rare Breed is a great whiskey too, but it also tastes nothing like George T. Stag. It's not even close. Fred said age-wise, he gives the knock to George T. Stag because it's 14 against, the 6 to 8, maybe 10, maybe some 12-year-old bottles in Rare Breed. But Rare Breed tastes absolutely nothing like George T. Stag. It's nutty. It's funky. It's delicious. It's sweet, but it doesn't have the fruitiness and the chocolatiness that George T. Stag has. So to me, Rare Breed didn't even enter the discussion. Like, it's not even in the category of George T. Stag. So like I said, I was triggered, and I was like, I laughed a little bit at his Russell 6 recommendation against Saz 18. I was incensed by his recommendation of Rare Breed as a substitute for GTS. I couldn't hack it. I was out.
Yeah, it sucked. It was but you know me, I mean, I also, Rare Breed's fine, but I think Rare Breed is like, you know me, I have a hard time, and I know that like you and Kyle, hopefully jokingly, we're talking about my expensive palate, but like, it's hard for me sometimes to suggest whiskeys that are just so rough around the edges when you're paying a moderate price for them, because I think that you can get better products for a little bit more, or just downright like 90% close to those products for even cheaper. So I like Rare Breed. I like the price. I don't love it as much as Fred does, and I think there's something wrong with him.
With Fred? I think we lost Fred. Yeah, I mean, I thought that one was like, I know he's got a deep affection for readily available whiskeys, and I think that has tainted his judgment in this call.
Right.
And yeah, the blinds where he's picking Rare Breed above like a GTS 2020 or 2018, those are so good. I didn't have full bottles of those. I had tasted those. They were really, really good. And I like Rare Breed, but I like these Russell. I have done this Russell's pick against Rare Breed. I have done Wild Turkey Decades against Rare Breed. And I don't think this is as good as those GTS. I don't think Decades is as good as 2020 or 2018 GTS. So,
right,
like, And Fred has a fairly discerning palate. I like listening to what his thoughts are on a whiskey. I like listening to him pick it apart, but I think he's insane to insinuate or to pick the rare breed releases that I've had as being superior to most GTS releases. That just feels a little crazy to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that said, we're gonna be over that. We're gonna let it go. And move past it to the recommendations, which people really got into throwing out here. Okay. I got to look for the transition from rye to bourbon. 68 people in the chat. Thanks, guys. Glad you tuned in. Hopefully this is entertaining. I feel more passion about this topic given some of the recommendations that are out there. Apparently Jason at Mash and Drum released a video like an hour before we went live tackling the same topic, so it is kind of hot.
Thanks, Jason.
Well, no shame in that game. People could watch it and then jump over here, so maybe just fueling the interest in the subject matter. So, and Jason's a swell guy. Like, I haven't never talked with Fred. I've talked with Jason. I like Jason a lot. William Wiley, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Spoiler alert. That is one of my picks. 12-year-old Heaven Hill, and some of the releases may be more closely aligned. If you're going to go for something that's reasonably readily available, I think you can't overlook Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and I don't know how Fred did. To me, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is 80% closer to GTS than Rare Breed is. So I like that one for sure. Here's a question from Tom. How many barrels of GTS? It's normally around 15,000 bottles. Let the speculation begin about what they'll do with the barrels they're not using. You must have missed the chat last week, Tom, where Kyle and I talked about that a little bit. I speculated. Given somebody wrote an article, Bourbon and Banter, maybe, about what might be happening. So I'll recount it just for the sake of we're here. We might as well do it. I think it was Bourbon and Banter had thrown out, okay, Harlan Wheatley's anniversary. He's been in Buffalo Trace for 14 or 15 years, however old the stag was going to be. That's how long he's been master distiller. So this batch of stag would have been his first batch that he oversaw distilling. So the thinking is maybe we hold it back until 20 years, and then it's a 20-year special release for Harlan Wheatley's 20th anniversary. Maybe that. That said, like, there's a legitimate chance it just wasn't hitting, and given the pressure that they got after 2019 not being up to most people's standards for GTS, they didn't want to release something that was not crushing. And I hear that. Like, I understand why they would not want to taint this brand, which is carrying a lot of hoopla for Buffalo Trace in general. So those are two thoughts that I thought were quite good. I'm open to other speculation. But I mean, we're sitting here together drinking bourbon at high noon, so let's speculate wildly. Open to other people's theories.
Yeah, it's weird to me. You know, I think the biggest thing that's weird to me is, like, I mean, we're like 2 weeks away from its release. Why we've waited this long? You know, there are times where I feel like you see pictures of tours and the bottles are already bottled. You know what I mean? Or like you see back in March where, like, people are on tours and they're like, look, this year's birthday is already getting bottled.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't hear press release for like 6 months. I find it hard to believe that, like, 2 weeks before it rolls out, we hear, sorry, this just didn't cut it. How did this, like, it just baffles me that we didn't know this, that somebody didn't know this, that it wasn't released, or why it wouldn't have been released 6 months ago, a month ago. It's strange. And then when you come to stores, you know, it's already a weird game for stores to be able to get antique collection, what they have to buy in order to get antique collection. But the distribution of stag makes up generally 50% of all the Buffalo Trace antique collection bottles. So with those being gone, what happens to the stores who've been doing things for Sazerac in order to get a bottle? Do they get nothing? Do they get a single bottle of antique? That's the kind of stuff that makes me super pissed, because you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
I hear
it's
that.
frustrating.
Like,
Because
yeah,
it's easy to be like, oh, I'm sorry, your allocations are low. I remember talking to 3 different store owners last year who sent back their antique collection allocations out of frustration to Sazerac. They sent them back. They said I don't want it. So at least if their numbers are cut, they'd be like, here's a case, 3 bottles of Stag. And you don't get that this year, because the most common whiskey is taken out. And it just so happens that the most common one is almost always the best. And somehow it just didn't live up to the standards. It had to have been pretty bad, because 2019, I know there's a lot of people who love it, and that's very cute and very admirable. 2019 sucked. And that's not a proof whore side of me. Like, to be fair, the flavor profile was fine. But there's a lot of things that come with the proof, not just the proof, like viscosity, complexity. You hit a lot of the flavors, but you miss a lot of what makes Stag in 2019. And if it didn't meet up the standards, like, they've had some pretty terrible products that came out. 2019 Thomas H. Handy, pretty terrible. So this had to be a terrible product. All the Sazes that have released it since they've had them tanked, terrible. So
that's true.
It must have been pretty bad for them just now to decide it's too bad for us to,
like the last 5 years of Saz 18 pre last year. Like, the general consensus was that those were not good, but they kept releasing them, and the secondary value was still there. So I would agree with you. I'll jump in and then let you finish. But I can't believe that they, out of all the barrels that they have aging, all like a bajillion barrels that Buffalo Trace has aging, that they don't have something that would work as GTS, even if it's less. It's like, I just can't believe that.
Instead of having something like, I think even if they did like a 13-year product, we'd be like, oh, that sucks. Fine. But it would still be fine. They have tons of barrels, and they said that not including it for the first time in 19 years is more worthwhile than anything else we could think of. And I know I don't work in whiskey, but that boggles my mind. And I'm not going to get into the whole, I'm not going to get in the PR stunt thing where it's like, that's so admirable.
Nobody's thinking about
admirable.
PR
they care about quality this much. That's so amazing. Be like, no, it's not. You've tried some of their products, right? Like
Fireball. I hope, like, and obviously we're not behind the doors. We don't know. Like, we're speculating wildly because that's what we do. I would hope that it genuinely was, like, maybe they don't have as much well-aged stock as we think, because some of it's allocated for Eagle Rare, some of it's allocated for Stag Junior, and that what they were holding for, and they always want to release Stag at a certain age statement, which I don't know is true. I don't know the history of Stag age statements, but I want to hope the best, because that's generally how I try to operate.
I hope it's not like, well, if we didn't have it this year, everyone's used to that and it's fine to not continue to have it. But it's what's so interesting to me.
That would not be
it's not that I'm a Buffalo Trace, a Sazerac hater. I used to like Buffalo Trace products, but increasingly over the years, like I even mentioned in the very beginning, kind of unrelated to this topic, I started noticing the flavor profiles blurred together. And on top of flavor profiles being blurred together, they increasingly got more and more thin and hotter. And then even on the allocated products, I noticed the same. Like last year's George C. Stag, I thought had a really good flavor profile. It reminded me of older George C. Stag releases, but it was so gosh darn hot. And then looking at the write-ups or Fred Minnick or whatever, the little bits of the 2021 releases so far,
I saw your little comments on the Weller.
So far, it sounds like William LaRue Weller and Thomas H. Handy are hot as balls. And so I could only imagine that George C. Stag was probably a pit of fire.
The 9-month T-shirt is probably just going to say "hot as balls" on it.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's insane to me. It's insane to me. But I tell you one thing that it did do, which is interesting. In regards to the secondary market, like, you know, things have been creeping up, and we know that, and that's just what the secondary market's going to do, even though it's gotten a little bit out of control. In light of here's the biggest problem. George T. Stag is already now like $300 to $400 more to get from stores. I don't even want to say secondary stores that charge close to secondary prices, $300 to $400 more than it was last year. Now, because it's gone, the people on secondary are going to charge more. But what happens is when people price their whiskey for the following year, they look to see what the current market is. What it has done, we have lost a year of potentially catching Stag before it goes super high, because I think the rumor was that Stag was going to be hazmat again this year.
Yeah, that is
at least
correct.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
and if it was hazmat
released,
if it was hazmat, the price on secondary would have gone up purely because secondary is up and it is hazmat, and that would have set the prices high. What has happened is we have lost the product entirely. Secondary market will go higher, and that means any person who lives in a place that does not get George T. Stag for retail prices, you will not be able to buy it because it will be over $1,000 a bottle, and no one should buy it for that price.
Welcome to Bone Town.
And so last year was the last year to affordably find George T. Stag, unless you are in a place that has state control pricing, lottery systems, or you just know somebody and you're able to get it for MSRP. So it's a pretty big dig to both stores and bourbon drinkers, which is just a huge loss all around.
The end.
Anyway, why don't we talk about some substitutions?
We will after I
pee. Bummer time.
Yeah. I mean, we already threw Elijah Craig Barrel Proof out there, so maybe you guys could talk about your perception of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof as a substitute.
Yeah, let's do that
after I do the thing, or while I do the thing. Yeah.
I don't think Elijah Craig. No, pure mustard. I'm not saying you should sell your GTS 2020. And I will tease a little bit about my suggestion too. The reason that I know some people who didn't like the 2020. I personally like the 2020 because it's flavor profile. You know, some people like Stag and they're like, I like Stag because it's really caramely and like brown sugary. That is a component of a George T. Stag. Heat, or like, you know, boom, in your face. That's a profile of George T. Stag. 2020 had this like slightly tannic oak thing going on there and fruitiness, and it reminded me of some of my favorite years of Stag. There are parts about it that reminded me of 2012. There's parts about it that reminded me of 2014. Those are highly, highly unattainable now because of the price, and because they don't make them anymore if you're not going on secondary. If you are, the prices are insane. So I thought the 2020 was really enjoyable for that reason, but it was a little bit on the warm side. But where was I? Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I want to say that it's a decent suggestion, but for the, you know, it's got the proof, it's got the oomph, it's got the coffee, the chocolate, those elements, the espresso notes, the nutmeg notes that Stag has. But what it's missing is the fruitiness, because, you know, George T. Stag also has that fruit, that cherry in there as well. And in some years it's a little bit more than others, but Buffalo Trace is a fruitier profile in general, and I think it still comes through on the Stag. So while there have been some batches of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof very affordably, you know, it is a great product for sure. I think it's a little dry and a little missing. So now that Drew is back and I've done that,
What I
would
miss.
say I just did my little summation. But going on what Andrew Beck had just mentioned, my suggestion for George T. Stag would be 14-year plus Knob Creek single barrels. I
you
am
have any
not
left from
talking
a couple
about
years
Knob
ago?
Creek 12. I am not talking about Knob Creek 15.
Yeah.
I am talking about single barrels. I actually have had a couple of picks that to me were really, really close. If Drew gets here, yeah, that's true. That's what I get to do, Eric. That's what I get to do with my AirPods. I have downstairs a pick, and I'm forgetting where the store is. I have a pick that I put side by side with my 2014 George T. Stag, and I was like, this is 90% plus the profile. And at this time, again, these were $50, $55, $60. Excuse me, it's from Bill's Liquors.
Bill.
Dollar products. So the problem with single barrels is that they are varying in flavor profile. And so you might get some and you're gonna be like, oh, this is so Jim Beam nutty. This tastes nothing like Stag. Why are you making the suggestion? Well, I'm talking about what used to be, what should still kind of be in some markets, a easily findable 120 proof 14 to 15-year-old whiskey. And there are several barrels that I have found that have been fruity, have been espresso-y, have been caramely, and have had that wow factor, that punch, just like Stag has, and more similar to Stags before 2017 than 2017, 18, 19. You know, the 2017, 18, and 19 have been a specific profile. Kind of brown sugary, still good, but they're definitely a little bit softer, more approachable than, Stags from before. A 2010, 2007 Stag, 2012, 2014 Stag. These have profiles that are like insanely high proof. Like you'll have, once you get done with your pour of it, you'll be like, I've been drunk since yesterday. But they don't drink like that. They don't drink hot. And so there's something about finding something that has so much oomph to it, but it drinks so easy, that I think is a characteristic of Stag.
I would mention particularly like some of the recent Elijah Craig barrel proof picks are good, but probably don't bat at that level. But the Pirate bottle secondary value is substantially below most GTS releases. So I would definitely, if you're looking to really match a profile, get yourself a Pirate bottle through some kind of means. I have two others, though, that I think are also good, but keep going because I cut you off. I'll let you finish, and then
yeah, I mean, like even the sample that Eric Sawyer blinded us.
Yeah, like, it was so good. Yeah.
That was so good. Like those picks were amazing. Like, it's one of those things, it just depends on when you come into whiskey. People who were buying Russell's picks and Knob Creek picks all day, like they're the real MVPs, man. They're the real MVPs because they know what good value. Like when you hear people talk about value whiskey, you're like, but like good value whiskey that's legit good and crushing it. I mean, I wish I had more knobs than I do, but I have like 7, and 5 of them are open. 2 of them are just backups.
I'll throw out one. So knob, I would agree, the well-aged knobs, and I'm gonna add something too that's even kind of attainable. You mentioned not the knob 12s, but the knob 12 cask is really, 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 really good, and we're off by like 2 or 3 years, and it doesn't tend to be super nutty. So the knob 12 cask strength releases, I think, are a good option that I think I'd be remiss not to throw out. But I have one more. I'll let you hit us with another one, Brian, before I go. I mean, I will say knob is almost always more nutty, a little more cedary, a little less cherry, a little less fruity than the GTS. So certainly not a 1-to-1, but is that knob 12 cask, while not readily available, you can get it, is a really fantastic release for sure.
Yeah, honestly, my only suggestion here, because like I said in the very, very beginning, to me, and I've looked like George C Stag, for some reason, is just this amalgamation of flavors that I have yet to find something that is comparable to what it wholly is. And except for some of these knob picks for a majority of boxes that they get to check. So it is the only thing that I have in this category. I think everything else just falls more short than a well-aged knob pick.
I have one more that was pretty easy to get, and secondary value is still pretty low. And I'm surprised you didn't mention this. It's Discovery 4. Because the secondary value is barely over MSRP at this point. People still don't realize how good this whiskey is. And it is probably fruitier than the knob. It's more in the Elijah Craig kind of alignment, but really well-aged stuff. We got 13-year-old, we got 15-year-old, we got 10-year-old. And the 10-year-old is only 8% and no Tennessee in here whatsoever. So I'm so glad to have this backup. I'm so glad because to me, it's limited release stuff all day at $130. A great value for the quality of whiskey that's in here. So Bardstown Discovery Batch 4 definitely hit my list.
I feel like it's just too dark toned to me. Like I do agree on a lot of levels. I agree on a lot of levels. It's a lot of dark fruit. I think the complexity leans on the darker side of things. I feel like even though it might have a citrus pop, like Stag both has dark flavors and espresso and brown sugar and like dark cherry, but it also has a brighter, livelier, fruitier side. And so to me, it's I don't know. I find it way too similar, but a fantastic bottle. So I'm not knocking that at all. Sure. I just did a run through of some barrels. A buddy of mine wanted me to blind him on Tom. Great question. This is leading into what I was getting ready to say. My buddy wanted me to give him a blind of 15-year products. He gave me the bottles and told me to pour them into sample jars for him so he could blind them. And he is tasting through. Let me pull the list back up. He's tasting Calumet 15, the 3-chord Whiskey Drummer, Hickory Hill 15-year, Knob Creek 15-year-old 100 proof, and Bardstown Bourbon Company Discovery 4. So I just kind of tasted through these in very tiny just to have my own like summation just as I watch his video recap or wherever he puts it that I could see the same. But that's where I pulled, compared to other ones in that lineup, that's where I saw that the Calumet is a little bit more on the medicinal side, a little bit more of that, like it reminded me more of like Russell's 03. The 3-chord was like spicier. It definitely reminds me of something that's more turkey-esque. Hickory Hill was pretty good. I don't really have much to say about it. It reminded me more of Doc Swinson's than anything. The Knob Creek 15 was a little lighter in body than the rest, as should be expected. It's the lightest proof. And it was sweeter and sugarier than I thought. Tim, what did I say something about Tim?
I don't know.
Yeah, Tim.
Oh, your buddy.
Anyway,
I got it.
But Disco 4 was like, and this is why I mentioned it to you in a DM yesterday, Tom. But Bardstown 4 is way different than Calumet 15. Calumet 15 has more anise, has more medicinal flavors, whereas I think Bardstown Bourbon Company Disco 4 has more like, it almost starts like a Full Roses at first. What I would say is powdered sugar. What I would say is raspberry, like a toasted grain note, barrel char influence, leather. It's dense and chewy. These are things that like I honestly can't say about the Calumet at all. And there's a density that comes to the Disco 4 that is, it's just unlike the other ones of those. It's a fantastic flavor. I just think it's it exists as its own kind of thing.
Yeah, I've passed on the Calumet 15 multiple times. I did it again. So if anybody wants Calumet 15 in the Milwaukee area, I can tell you where to get it if you hurry. But I passed on it multiple times, just given I don't want to spend $130, even though it's a good whiskey, on it. Like it's good, and I'm in all day at 80, but I just can't bring myself to spend $130 on it. Tough. Right. It's just tough. All right. That was great discussion. Fantastic. And we've dragged this out for an hour and 15 minutes already, which is perfect because this was our only topic for today. And I knew we would go on it for a long time. And it's a great topic. I think people are jiving. I'm jiving. I'm very jived right now. And we're on to the one that probably has the most hype. And, it's debatable whether or not it's the best. I've tried it one time, thanks to Kyle Ramage. Big thanks to Kyle Ramage for sharing his bottle of WLW with us when we did the Starlight pick. Hero. American hero, plays hard, loves the game. Good guy all around. Patriot, maybe. Actually, I don't know. But we're going to say yes for now. Bottom line, we're on William LaRue Weller. And we'll start with Fred's remarks. And we'll go from there. And I'm going to say what Fred said. And I'm going to let you have the floor, Brian. So Fred said Maker's cask strength as a substitute for William LaRue Weller. You have the floor.
So, and honestly, we have been on the stream for a while. So I think I said this on air, not just off air to you.
Well, you did say it briefly, but now you can elaborate because probably a lot of people are here who weren't there at the start.
Yeah. So to me, what I think the biggest misstep is in this particular suggestion is I think that everyone is trying to compare it to a weeded profile because it's a weeded profile, as if it being a weeded profile is its most unique trait. And I think that this is a disadvantage. To me personally, I think that and this is a lead into my suggestion. I'll talk about it and then I'll go into my suggestion if that's okay. I think Maker's is too thin. I think Larceny is too hot. I think Rebel Yell is way too young. What's Andrew Beck is saying Rebel 12 barrel proof? I didn't know that was even a product.
I don't think it is. There's a Rebel 10-year non-barrel proof that's pretty good, but I still don't think it's
pretty good, but I don't either. I think I would still take Weller 107 over that. To me, what I find the difference, one of the things when I was new to whiskey, when I heard weeded and people talked about it being a softer grain, I think I heard that and said, this product won't be hot and it won't be spicy. And that is not true. It's not true with younger whiskey. And it's certainly not true to me with like a well-aged barrel strength product like William LaRue Weller, for example. To me, I think it's different, but I do think it has like a sweet caramely cakiness that is perhaps more approachable sometimes than the lingering spice of a rye whiskey. So I think that my suggestions are some of the things that I would lean towards would not be weeded. I do have a weeded suggestion, but it doesn't match the proof. And then I have something that matches closer. So when it comes to Maker's Mark, I think kind of tastes like hot. It's like hot sugary pea. Like there's just something about it that's just still like.
Just for the record, I completely disagree with you, but
it still doesn't hit, man. It's too thin. Like it's not bad. It's not bad. It just doesn't seem to carry the same. Did you have
FAE01? Did you have that one?
Yeah, I might still have a sample of it still left here.
So I'll pour a little bit of that in a minute, but like there's nothing thin about that one. That's the most viscous, like creamy,
grassy
product from them.
Grassy?
No. Okay,
dude, stop.
All right, I'll set this one aside. No, you stop. Anyway, real quick, Porkins mentioned that Rebel 12 cask strength is a thing that was released. How did I miss this? Where have I been? Living under a stupid rock? Like that's
I want Rebel 12 cask strength.
I do too. That sounds fantastic and maybe a good substitute that I have never tasted. So if anybody has one and wants to send us samples or put it in a blind, we would thank you. And I would dare say you send me a sample of that.
This bottle looks moderately familiar to me.
You send me a sample of that, and I would send you a sample of something equally awesome.
Interesting.
Did you Google it? I assume that's what you did.
Now, I will say my suggestion is in a similar camp as that.
Well, let's have it. Let's go for it. And I'm going to pull down my FAE01, which was my suggestion. Spoiler alert, but go ahead.
My suggestion is Luxro Double Barrel 12-year.
The distillery release.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Which I have not had that.
So to me, again, this hits a little bit lower proof wise. But again, to me, when I think about William LaRue Weller, it is a
WL. That's so hard to say.
Yeah. To me, it's a more decadent pour than the rye bourbons in the antique collection. So to me, when I go to Luxro Double Barrel, what I love the most about it is how sweet it is. Like it's a really good flavor profile at 12 years. It's not over oaked, but the oak is certainly present, and it comes with like a nice amount of brown sugar, cake-like sugariness, just a lot of good sweet flavors with some fruitiness to boot. And to me, that is the summation of the flavor profile that you generally would find in William LaRue Weller. It's just not a weeded profile. But I think that maybe because it's a little bit, well, it's not younger actually, but there's something about it that comes off soft and drinkable. Maybe because instead of being weeded, it's 20 proof points lower.
I got to come hard right now for FAE01. It is so freaking good. And I don't know what you guys are talking about with P. Like this one is, I mean, it's caramel, but it's not like dark in the caramel, but it is so sweet. It's vanilla custard with some brulee on the top for sure. Like you talk about makers being thin. There's zero. Suck it, Brian. There is zero.
That's our 12-month shirt.
Drew likes P. I'm out on that. Thankfully, I'm the one who handles ordering those. But FAE01, you might need to have it out of the bottle. I will stand by this come hell or high water. And many people who are team makers with me, like Tom, who's opening the Makers 46 cask, which I have up there, which I should go ahead and pop right now. I've heard great things about the Makers 46 cask. Haven't opened it, but this FAE01 is so freaking good. And to me, this was the only thing that I could think of that came close. I almost said nothing because there is nothing that is aged to the extent or anywhere close to a WLW. Anywhere close. Like most weeded whiskey on the market is youngish, and there's not much double barrel weeded whiskey. And when it is, it's fine. You know, it's fine. It's MGP.
It'll take me forever.
So I've learned that any sourced weeded, less known to be MGP, but a decent amount of the sourced weeded stuff is MGP. I've learned this. And it's fine. You know, it's good, but it's not anywhere close to like a WLW. And to me, the best weeded product I've ever had, not WLW, that we had with Kyle that day, is this FAE01. There is FAE02 that was recently released that I would like to try and get, but I have not had it. I don't have it, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I just personally feel like the palate comes off still too like kind of hot, kind of youthful, just not there.
Not this one.
Agree to disagree. I'm totally down with you liking it. I know a lot of people love it.
Yeah, like I don't get a lot of heat. Granted, I'm a few in at this point. The finish does hit some black pepper. Like the finish is not like pure viscosity. So I get a little bit of that. More like a 7-year MGP kind of finish. But the front is so good. It's kind of like how I felt about Remus Batch 5. Front is amazing. So good, delicious, deep. Finish, not my best, not my favorite finish ever. But again, I still stand by this FAE01 being my second favorite weeded bourbon in the history of weeded bourbons. We'll see what the future holds. Tom, how are you feeling about that Makers 46 cask, dude? Kyle, I would rather not Drew likes the Dickel. Probably would also be a great T-shirt idea. Not great, maybe. It just feel a little weird. And it's not 100% true. I will say, so I have to walk this back a little bit. The Dickel 15, the first bottle I had when I opened it, I was a big fan. As I got deeper,
while you're talking, I'm gonna turn around and try and see if I can find my FAE sample.
Do it. As I got deeper and deeper into the Dickel 15 bottle that I had, which was just under 100 proof, I was less into it. The Flintstone got more intense. The oak was less pronounced. So yeah, there are times where I'm like, yeah, I want a big candied orange note, and I'm in on the Dickel. So I hate to hate on Dickel, but I also don't want to be known as the guy who likes Dickel. It is what it is.
No, it's not.
We're gonna pull up pretty hard. And what I will say is Dickel should go through rebranding. I think that's common knowledge. I think we all can get behind that. Cascade Hollow is a great name. Dickel leads to too many puns, and we could all avoid that. So Kyle says Air plus Dickel is not great for real. Yeah, that's been kind of my experience too. I did like the 11-year Bottled and Bond better when I first opened it versus down at the bottom. I've had what's left of this for a while now. So, yeah, bottom line is Dickel is fine, but it's not a super premium whiskey. And there's a reason the 15-year-old was $60. It shouldn't be more than that. Okay. Did you find your FAE 01 sample?
No, I can probably dig over here, but there's just no point to do that while on the channel today.
Okay. Tonight. Yeah.
I might have finished it too. So I just had a sample of it. I never had a bottle of it.
I have a backup. I love it so much. I have this open bottle and I have a backup. So if you need a little more, I'm happy to provide you with a little more. I have to send you that batch 5 Remus sample anyway. I can throw you in some FAE 01.
Sure.
Nose is really nice on this too. Really nice nose.
Smell like Pete.
So. Oh my gosh. No, not in the least. Not even a little bit. I don't know where the pea thing came from. Tom says the 46 cast strength is great. Nice. Light, he says. Light, sweet. Oh, light, sweet nose. Very straightforward. Sweet on the palate. Good finish. Now I'm super curious. I might... Tom, you know what? Good Lord. Here we go. I'm going for it. We're going to do another bottle pop tonight. Because I have it out on the shelf, 2 bottle pop because I won. I'm probably going to make a video about this, but I'll give you guys a preview.
Well, it's something that really tastes like pea. Open to cast strength, Vancouver's 46.
Have you had this one, Brian, or are you just running your mouth? You're just running your mouth at this point. Oh. This was a Costco special, too. Asparagus. Oh my gosh, Tom. All right, here we go. Bottle pop, Maker's 46. And now we're doing it against the FAE 01. So this is good content that I literally could have spent a whole video on this and probably gotten thousands of views. So I hope you guys appreciate it. Remember, the headphone fund is open. All right. Decent bottle pop. It's kind of a C+. Very light, high-pitched bottle pop on the Maker's 46.
If you're ready for it to taste like grass and pea, man.
Shut up.
Okay, Johnny Drama said, did we hit the AirPod fund?
We did not.
So goal.
No, we're at $15.
I think we're at $15. I think another $15 gets us there because they are cheap. I think mine were 30. Let me double check. I think they were $31 shipped from my address when I got them home in TH.
Are we counting what YouTube takes out of the super chats? Their cut.
I'm gonna go back through my history. I want to see exactly how much they cost me.
All right, on my left is FAE. All right, I need to get in the zone here. Okay.
Recently purchased items. These cost me Is that true? 30. Hold on. 31.40. 31.40 something. Orders. Hold on. Waiting reviews. 31.43. That's how much That's how much it cost me. So just over $31.
Yeah,
and
we're
at
$26 short. Yeah. Okay. So FAE 01 here on my left, and then 46 cask on my right.
Oh, this is the content. This is the P content we've all been waiting for.
So the 46 smells a little bit more like barbecue oak, more like burnt oak on the right, where FAE 01 is a little bit more French oaky, a little sweeter, maybe a touch more cinnamon, where the 46 smells more like a straightforward, like FAE 01. The nose almost lends itself to like this bizarre wood finishing, even though it's just American oak. It's got a kind of a French oak whiff, which I would have expected in the Maker's 46. But Maker's 46 is less complex on the nose, but I get a little bit more barrel char. It signals itself as maybe a more oak forward bourbon than the 46, where the 46 is very sweet on the nose. Evan Swift with another fiver, so we're up to 20. We're 21 away from the headphone fund. This is shameful. FAE 01, I mentioned it, is kind of light caramel for days. I mentioned vanilla custard and the crispy sugar when you take that butane torch to it. It holds up, and it's really desserty, and I love it so much, and very viscous. And the finish is a little bit of black pepper. So if I'm going to critique something, it's only the finish. I left Tom's thing up here forever. So we'll go over to Evan. Thanks for that super chat, my man. Major appreciation. So I don't really have a preference necessarily between the noses. I take it back. I like the FAE 01 notes better. I like that big sweet nose. I'm intrigued by the barrel char note I get on the 46. But let's hit the palate, see how it holds up.
I'm trying to look while you're tasting. I'm trying to look through my notes to see if I have something for FAE 01, and I can't find it. It makes me wonder if the only one I have tried is the RC6.
I had the SE4 PR5, and I like that, but I like FAE 01. I like FAE 01 better. I still have some of the SE4.
Maybe the RC6 is the only one that I had.
That was the 2019, I think. I think that was the 2019.
I know that I have tried the FAE 01, but maybe I don't actually know what that one tastes like because I think I'm thinking of RC6.
Okay. Which was the lowest graded. So they thought SE4 PR5 was a step up. Then FAE 01 was a step up from that. So you may be. I might be right on the P notes. I just might have the bottle wrong. We might not be talking the same.
More like RP6, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. So this Maker's 46. Tastes like Maker's 46 cast strength. In that I like Maker's 46 though. It is thinner than the FAE 01. I get a little bit more dry oak. And it's good, but it is not one that's like, oh, this is really good. I wouldn't be like, this is a WLW substitute. It's good. I like it, but I prefer.
But it is what Minnick picked, right? Maker's 46 cask.
No, he picked the standard Maker's cask, which I think he's out to lunch on. I like Maker's 46 cask as well. It's a killer value at like $45, but to me, it's not anywhere close to a WLW. It doesn't deliver enough oak, where I think with these wood finishing experiments, at least you're getting more oak influence. And then the FAE 01, the viscosity is pretty dank. So I'm definitely in on that as a substitute, probably the closest thing you can get to WLW. The Maker's 46 cask is good, but the viscosity is totally lacking. And the dryness I'm not a big fan of. Like, I got black pepper here, but I didn't get dry. I get a dry finish on the 46. Yeah. I mean, I can send you a blind just of Makers. So I have plenty of it. Because I like it. I think it's good.
I'm trying to figure out where I would have a sample of this. That's the thing. It's like bothering me the most right now.
I have gotten so many blinds this year that so many of my sample bottles are unmarked. I have no idea what they are. So I plan to do a live. I'll just do it sporadically one night where I take all of my craft whiskey sample bottles and dump them into a vat and create infinity. I can probably fill like one of those small desktop barrels just full of craft whiskey samples, but it would probably taste awful because some of those samples are really rough. Yeah, the 46 I'll have to come back to neck pour. You know, I don't really ascribe to a massive difference there. I haven't had a lot of whiskeys that I didn't like at all initially, and then I was like, oh well, it really opened up. But this one is, like I said, good but not great. The FAE one I absolutely love. Okay. So there you have it. Do you have any other potential substitutes for WLW, or are we over the rainbow?
The only other one that I had doesn't hit on the proof, and that was and it's also not necessarily any easier to find, but if you did, it'd probably be cheaper. And that is Old Fitzgerald, and I believe the one that I have is the 14-year.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. I have not had enough of those to know, but given that we're talking about well-aged wheateds, I forgot about Old Fitz. That gets us
they're
close.
still 100 proof, so they are thinner than what
and
you
profile
get,
is so different. Like the Weller profile against the Heaven Hill wheated profile, so different.
Right.
But I think that's an honorable mention, worth noting for sure.
Yeah. So this, you're right. This FAE 01 was from this year, and I don't think I might not have had this.
Dude, I'm telling you,
not have had this.
It is so good. It's
I might not have had this.
Fantastic. I want to try FAE 02 if they've done anything similar.
Well, and what somebody said here too, someone said in the chat that that FAE 01 uses American oak staves, 02 uses French oak staves, which means it probably tastes like maple syrup.
Which I'm in on. I'm in on that for days.
I'm all about that. I'm all
FAE 01 with the American oak staves. This just tastes like a really well-aged wheated. And I wish I had bought more. I have one backup, but it's
find this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is the second goat of wheated whiskeys, and I can't believe Fred didn't mention
this one too, so I can decide before acquiring.
I will, but you should acquire.
Yeah,
I was gonna try a.
To be said, I'm not a Makers hater for the sake of hating on Makers. I think what Makers is doing, especially with their limited editions, they're the only brand who has a relatively available, what seems like limited edition product
at a great price, a killer price, at a great price. $60. Yeah,
I am pro Maker's Mark, so don't hear me as being anti Maker's Mark in my reactions. I falsely assumed what Drew is drinking was RC6, I believe, in my memory, which, to be fair, is thin, grassy, and lacking.
I did not buy that one. I have not tasted it, so I cannot speak to it. But we tend to appreciate whiskey similarly. It's not often we really disagree.
RC6 isn't bad. RC6 isn't bad. It's just I wouldn't think to put it comparable to William Lou Weller.
So, sure. And I has it's hard to put anything up against WLW. But when it's like, and when it comes to like making a decision of like, is there a substitute? I mentioned it's hard for me to say anything's a substitute for it because even FAE01 doesn't deliver the oak, but it does deliver the sweetness and viscosity and positive flavor vibes. But it doesn't deliver the age, and there's nothing out there that does. So there's not a real substitute. But FAE01 to me gets closest.
Yeah, Porkins is getting into some really suggestive things. I debated going down the Four Roses rabbit hole, but I figured this would be so difficult for people to find. But there are so many barrels of OESO Four Roses that are aged the same or longer than William LaRue Weller. So I am in that camp. I'm on board with you, Porkins. I just don't think it has the cakeiness.
I don't have so I have 9 Four Roses single barrel picks, and not one of them is an OESO. I don't think. Maybe I have one. Hold on. I don't think I have any. And the oldest pick I have, granted I live in Wisconsin, is 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, no OESOs in my collection.
Dude, Four Roses, man. Four Roses.
OESO, that's one of the most rare.
I'm gonna do a hot take.
Right?
I'm gonna do a hot take just because it's time to.
It. Yeah,
here's a hot take.
9:51.
Here's a hot take. If you want a product that's going to compete with William LaRue Weller, start asking your local stores for Parker's Heritage wheat whiskey heavy char barrels.
The initial reviews of that have been great. I want to
11-year wheat whiskey, 122 proof.
Yeah, that'll do it. It's a great point.
Start. It's not out yet, so start asking your stores if it's going to come out or to get on a list for it. It's not BTAC level. It's not Pappy level. It's not any of those levels. People go after it, yeah, but you still have a chance at this. It hasn't released except for maybe one market.
Parker's and because it's a wheat whiskey, because
heavy
it's a
char
wheat whiskey, there's likely going to be some hesitancy among people who are bourbon or rye people because it's not a bourbon or a rye. That said, who cares?
It's going to beat William LaRue Weller this year.
Breaking Bourbon gave it big stars, and I really would love to try this. So, I mean, there's a simple tax to Brian's advice to you, and that is that you have to send us samples. Doesn't have to be a big sample, 1 ounce samples. I want to try that whiskey so bad. Like the Parker's Heavy Char, which I could never get. If anybody has an extra bottle of Parker's Heavy Char and you're feeling benevolent, reach out to me. Because that was amazing. That was one I really wanted to, and I didn't get. It happens. It's fine. I've got a lot of good whiskey, so who cares? But that one was great. And I really want this Parker's.
Tom is saying that the Parker's is a lotto for Ohio, but I'm pretty sure the Parker's that's in the Ohio lottery presently is the Heavy Char Bourbon.
Which you should get. But get that.
You should definitely
get the Heavy Char Bourbon because it's fantastic.
Here's the deal. I don't ask for stuff, and I shouldn't.
I do. I'm not above it.
I get a lot of things here. If you have access to the Parker's Heavy Char wheat whiskey, please let me know. It's the only thing I have left this year that I want to get. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Did you get the Four Roses this year? Did you acquire one?
I purchased one from a guy locally.
Nice.
For way too much money. But I didn't win the lotto. And last year, they came and went from Louisville with no sign. I saw no one post they got from any store. All I remember hearing are weeks where it wasn't here. And then I hear stores saying it came and went. So I assumed I would never get one. So I acquired one. But I did have a sample of it too from the Mellow Moments tasting, the virtual tasting with Brent Elliott. So I was able to taste it.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. It did hit in Milwaukee, and I missed it. Like it was here and then it was gone, and so I stopped at my stops, and it doesn't look like I'm gonna get that one. Who knows? You never know. Some of the Christmas raffles, you never know. Doesn't look great, but it's fine. I got my Russells. Was thrilled about that. Killer store picks. Thrilled about those. Four Roses stuff. So. But not the limited. I'll make it. All right, we're at 9:55. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, prayer requests anybody wants to throw out before we sign off tonight? It was a fun one for sure. I enjoyed that thoroughly.
Dude, I didn't send you a sample of this the video I just did this week of the Four Roses blind, not blind, but the Four Roses taste through.
Yeah.
I need to at least send you a sample of this Bevmo because
you do.
Did you not this Bevmo OESV, which is from the run of OESVs that I've been doing after.
The legendary.
It's like it's a better drinker than the 21 LE. But tasting that would at least let you see like what is in store for the 21 LE. But don't think it's gonna like give you all these bells and whistles more than the sample I send you because it's not.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I got samples to send to you, so let's just do a swap this week, and then maybe we can taste through the samples next week on the live. Although I got to reach out to Aaron, who sent us that last blind, which included that Early Times Bicentennial. I mean, what a boss! What a friggin' boss, Eric! I saved you just a touch of that, so you have some whenever we golf again, if we ever golf again. I choose to believe, though. Anyway, Aaron said he wanted to give us a blind of more upscale stuff, which I'm like, you gave us Early Times Bicentennial, which was bandang-tastic with like a Four Roses. What else do we have? It was a great blind. It was like really sad.
I've been trying to find that decanter ever since. It was that decanter. It was the Four Roses. It was a weird whiskey that you said was like a local whiskey company.
Oh yeah. I think it was it Border? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then was there a Rebel or an Ezra or a something in there?
An Ezra single barrel. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And then something else that I forget.
No, there were only 4. That was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was the Four Roses, the Ezra, the Border, and then the Early Times. So I'll reach out to him, see what he's got. But anybody else who wants to give us a blind to taste through, doesn't have to be absolute bangers, just hopefully interesting and not all garbage. But a little garbage is fine because it's entertaining and it's educational. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can DM us on Instagram, get addresses for shipping. And certainly lends itself to some interesting takes at the very least. John White asks, am I going to Bourbon on the Banks? I am not. My goal is to go to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival next year. That's what I want to do. I want to have a meetup. I'd like to have a meetup sooner than that, but my wife and I are going down to Texas for 3 weeks in December. I may do a little bit of a tour through the Kentucky, the larger Texas distilleries, Balcones, Garrison Brothers, Treaty Hill. It's a bit of a drive, but we'll see. But I definitely want to do another Kentucky trip before too awful long. And then I'd love to do a meetup where we say, all right, everybody, anybody who wants to come for a bottle share, we're going to be in Kentucky at this time. We're going to rent out a massive Airbnb, and we're going to have a safe party where nobody will be drinking and driving, and the like. We'll figure it out. But anyway, Gabriel asks, where in Texas? My parents live in Wichita Falls. Her parents still live in Wichita Falls, too. That's where we met. That's where I went to college. That is northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth. So it's not a great city, but it's kind of quintessential nowhere Texas. It's 100,000 people, but there's not a lot to do.
Hey, FYI, there's these I'm gonna link in here. There are these tasting glasses I've been wanting to pick, and they're out of stock for like 3 months.
What are you talking about?
They're finally back in stock. Have you ever seen the see if you can see this kind of glasses? They're called G300s. Can you see this glass?
No, it's very. Oh yeah. It's very dainty. It looks very scotchy.
I think it's basically a Scotch tasting glass. But I've been wanting to get some of these glasses, and they've been out of stock. Like I said, for like 3 months, and they're back in stock as of today. Yeah, those are decent little snifters too.
We
Brandy
could get these. No, they're Scotch chasers. We could get some of these if we wanted. I'd like the stem to wear. I like that because I have greasy hands. Because I'm always like touching my hair and I put stuff in my hair. Anyway, but we could do some stemmed wear at some point. The commitment for Patreon was the fat bottom glass, which I love to drink out of as well. But I don't know, just given the look of the one you just shared, that doesn't really appeal to me greatly. But I mean, if you like it,
Fancy pants, let's go. Want, really. Let's go.
Fancy pants? What?
I'm committed now. Can you imagine, dude? I might just be pouring some FAE01 in that here in a week.
Yeah,
having the time of my life.
Andrew, yeah, it would be a road trip for sure, but I want to get down to Austin because I have not spent a lot of time in Austin, barely any, like drove through it. And I lived in Texas for a long time, but I moved away when I was 20, so I want to get down to Austin. I plan to play some golf when I'm down in Texas over December, so we'll see. The thinking is that we leave the kids maybe with grandparents and my wife and I go on a little road trip, but she's still breastfeeding, so that makes it a little more complicated. We'll see. All right, we got to sign off now. It's bedtime. I'm tired. And I don't know, Brian, how you survive these because we start at 9 your time and now it's 11.
Well, I mean, I have no other option.
True.
For one. True. And I do it because
love of the game.
I do it for Nation.
Yeah,
I do it for Nation. Nation fuels me. We're now calling Nation Nathan. It's collective.
Neat Nathan.
Neat Nathan.
Oh my gosh.
I get my energy from Nathan, the collective Nathan, which is you. So I just, keep going. And again, I told you, my wife's out of town with my daughter, so it's just me and my boys, one of which is sleeping on the couch because he wouldn't let me put him to sleep. And so he's just over there while I have this light and everything right here. And I imagine,
is he asleep? Is he out?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But he'll be up soon. I'm surprised I got through this all, but I have to be a night owl for you all. I have to be a night owl for you all.
Yeah, I guess so. Porkins says West Coast, best coast. Porkins, I want to come visit the West Coast. So if you have a dank place where you're like, hey, if you come out to the West Coast, you should check out this place or stay here. Let me know because I would love to get out there for a vacation, particularly in the winter here in Wisconsin because winter friggin' sucks. I hate Wisconsin winter so much. I've been here 10 years now and I hate winter. So I will survive it. God's grace is sufficient. But man, winter sucks. So yeah, anyway, that's why we're going to Texas for 3 weeks to get away from winter and to see family, but mostly to get away from winter. I thankfully I will likely do some coffee sourcing travel this year, which I did not do last year because of COVID. That will also help break up winter. Neat Nathan, Fred throws out Neat Nathan is the name for the new fat bottom glasses. I might, so I can print Porkins and Fred, Tom, Patreon squad. I can print on both sides, so I might just update the entry proof logo to just say Neat Nathan. And then do the fat bottom glass world graphic I created on Patreon already. Yeah, it's definitely an inside joke now. We'll see how long it lasts. I'd hate for somebody to join Patreon a year from now and then get that glass 18 months from now and they're like, Need Nathan? Like, what in the world? What is this? It's like, oh, you had to be there. But who knows? Maybe it'll stick. All right, squad. It was good. Hope you have a good rest of your evening. I teased a barrel pick. We'll come back to that, so stay tuned. Lots more to come from the Drew P. Whiskey channel, from the Abandoned Bourbon channel, and then from these lives and Brian and I have to work on podcast episodes. We got to figure this out. I mean, this is basically our podcast, these live streams. So hopefully if you don't catch it live, you're listening in your car, whatever. It's good content regardless. But hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Got a little of this George C Stag I poured left. I'll sip it here as I fall asleep.
Everybody remember to stay happy, stay healthy, stay noon, and remember to keep it neat.
Thanks,
Keep it, Nathan.
That was so... Hey, Nathan, keep it neat.
Stay happy, stay healthy, stay noon.